All right, guys. Welcome back to the next episode of the Grand Prairie PD podcast. I am your host, Nate. I'm here today with Emily.
Hey there.
I keep getting passed around. Seems like I'm never me and Katie anymore.
Yeah.
Me and Joe last time, me and Emily this time.
Switching up.
Here with Officer Bryan. Bryan is a member of our school resource officer unit.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, we actually we don't really know each other. I work at the church you go to, which is so we see each other in passing. But we sat down and started chatting, and it's like we started doing the actual interview before we started. So nope, let's go ahead and get this kicked off. Before we get started, our next test date is going to be September 16th. Go to grandprairiepd.org or grandprairiepolice.org. Just Google it. And
if you get to Canada, though, you're in the wrong.
There is
place.
a Grand Prairie in Canada, yeah, because they'll contact us for like work confirmations.
I get crisis calls from people in Canada.
Really?
Yeah. Don't quite know how to help there, but
drink more syrup.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan, you want to kind of dig in and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Bryan was originally from Arkansas.
Okay.
I'm from Arkansas.
That's how I knew I liked you. Arkansans.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was born in Fordyce.
Okay, I'm from Little Rock.
Born in Fordyce. Transitioned to Atlanta, Texas.
Okay.
Texas.
Basically Arkansas.
Yeah, pretty much still. When I was 2. So ever since then, been there. I was there. Left Atlanta, graduated high school from there. Ended up going to Texas College in Tyler, Texas.
Okay. I went to TJC. Senior year of high school, did dual credit.
Yep. I was over there a lot, man. Good school.
Very nice.
Yep. Then transitioned to Dallas, working for Target Distribution.
Okay.
Working for Target Distribution. Then ended up getting married and thinking about having a family, and decided I needed another avenue.
Yeah.
And became a cop.
Was there anything in particular that pulled you to the profession, or just starting a family, you need to dig into a career?
I mean, just like everybody is in this job, man. I've always wanted to do it early on in my life.
Really?
You know, there was 2 things when I grew up that I wanted to do, and it was either make video games,
right,
or be a cop. So I ended up going to college for criminal justice with a minor in computer science.
No kidding.
I wanted to do forensics, somewhere that's like right in the middle. You know what I mean? So started doing that at Target Distribution, on top of doing everything you could possibly do in a distribution center.
So how does that work? Because like when I hear distribution, I'm thinking like when I worked at UPS and it's just like picking up a box.
I did it all, man.
Yeah.
Everything you could possibly do at a loading, unloading, running the mezzanine, all that you can do there. I did it, man. And the funny thing is how I ended up here is that I have a friend that's in a neighboring agency.
Okay.
And while at work, he comes to me. I'm already thinking about becoming an officer. He comes to me like, hey, man, I just got added on to this neighboring agency. Okay. And I was at the time, I had the application in my hand for that agency.
Gotcha.
But not knowing that he was interviewing for that agency.
Right.
And he ended up telling me, like, hey, they hired 20 of us. I was like, what? Already? They like, yeah. He's like, they hired 20 of us.
Yeah.
I go home, I tore up the application. I'm like, there is no way I'm going to be able to get this job now.
Yeah.
So then I get online, and it was between Grand Prairie and Dallas. I came up with, and I chose to come here, man. Came and did the civil service exam. On top of that, was actually on my honeymoon. And when I flew back, my wife was like, hey, don't you got a test today? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, she like for the police department. And I was like, I think so.
Oh, geez.
So I hightailed it from the airport to the CVE.
Wow.
And as I'm pulling up to the CVE, Slater is coming out. And I was like, hey, y'all testing today? He's like, yeah, who are you? I'm like, I'm Williams, and I just want to take the test. He's like, yeah, come on. So he followed me to the, I followed him to the Grand Prairie High and took the test.
For like the running,
No, I had no clue. I knew nothing about that. I just thought I was going to take a test. So I walk in. I didn't. No, I'm in church shoes. I'm in like slacks and like church shoes. So I passed the test. And they was like, okay, now everybody.
The test being the written test.
The written test.
Okay.
Yeah. So then they say, hey, everybody to the track, and I'm like, what? To the track? And they was like, yeah, to the track. And I'm like, I don't have any change of clothes.
Right.
So we go down there, and I'm in slacks and like dress shoes, and I end up having to run the mile and do everything else in slacks and dress shoes, man.
Oh,
That is
so
hilarious.
great.
Yep.
And you crushed it though, didn't you?
I didn't say I crushed it. I passed. Like I was jet lagged. I'm coming from Jamaica. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was kind of jet lagged. So yeah.
It's good because you're in shape. Because if I came back from any kind of vacation, I'd
it'd
get
be
you the next
rough.
test.
Man, it was a little bit different shape then, man. I was 230. I was
Really?
Yes. I was a pretty nice sized guy when I first came to the
You play
performance
sports or
department.
anything?
I play football.
Okay.
I play football. I've always been a weightlifter my whole life.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
But yeah, I was in decent shape then, but not when you just like, hey, let's go run a mile and a
Yeah.
half
No.
under 15 minutes, you know?
Yeah, somebody asked, like,
In
if I
dress shoes.
had to answer, I wouldn't say I was fat right now. But if you say, hey, do you want to leave here and go run?
No.
Nah. Just take the rest of the day off.
Yeah, I've been starting running every night. It's been rough getting back into it, but
I think you do it like in the Marine Corps. You do it first thing in the morning,
yeah.
and then you pretty much know your day's not going to get worse.
Yeah.
To start your day like that. And it's
Yeah.
like, So what led you to become the physical specimen that you are today?
Man, honestly, one day I was in the gym. I used to work out here at the station before I started doing my own thing. And I'm 230 at the time. I was 230 at the time. And some photos had came out. Now, I'm on patrol nights A at the time. Photos had came out of us in the academy.
Okay.
Like Academy 3 with LJ, Stout, everybody.
Okay.
So photos that came out, and I'm like, man, I looked out of shape. And then, like, I called them. I called, like, a lot of people that was in my class. I'm like, man, why y'all let me look like that in the academy? And they was like, man, what's wrong? I'm like, man, I look terrible. I'm like, man, I'm big. I'm like, they like, no, but you muscular. I'm like, no, I don't like looking like that.
The camera always add weight.
It added a lot of weight, man. Because I think we had did like a Dallas Marathon. The Dallas Marathon, like the relay, and some photos that came out from that, and I'm like, oh no.
Right.
So as I'm up in the gym at the time, I just decided I'm just gonna go on keto, and I did keto for like 3 years.
Jeez.
I did it for like 3 years. I ended up getting down to like 200,
Oh wow.
200, and it just kind of became my way of life.
Right.
Just kind of became my way of life, and then one day, I just happened to be looking at a Men's Health magazine. And got across NPC bodybuilding,
Okay.
and just started doing a little bit more research on it online. And just one day I decided I'm gonna do a show,
No kidding.
and I did it. I did
Really?
like a 13-week cut. And,
What is a
and
13-week cut? What is that?
Meaning, I mean, strict eating, strict
okay.
working out.
Yeah.
For 13 weeks
Like
straight.
using a little drug scale and everything. So, like your rice
I
and
can
your
have
chicken.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
measuring out
Yeah.
if it fits my macros, like everything, measuring everything
Oh,
out.
wow.
They mean
13
actual drugs. I just
Yes,
meant
for
like
13 weeks straight, you know. And I did it, and ended up actually placed third my first show.
Very
No
nice.
way.
Yep.
That's cool.
Is that something you stuck with and you continue to do?
Yeah, man, that kind of became. I'm working on my fifth show now.
Oh wow.
I've been blessed to place top 5 in all of them.
That is awesome.
So it kind of became just a way of life. You
Yeah.
know, it taught me so much more about how to get fit than what I thought I knew.
I bet.
You know, the body is so in depth, and there's so many different ways that a person can change the way they look. Because with every last show that I did, I chose to eat different every last show.
Really?
And yes, from my first show, I did low carb, extremely low carb. Didn't really pay attention to my sodium, and my body looked a certain way. Second show, I did high carb, low sodium, moderate protein, and my body looked a totally different way.
So you're just kind of playing with and seeing what you can make work.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
So cool.
And I kept doing that every show. And the reason why I kept doing that every show is the fact that I'm the type of person, if I get into something, I want to get good enough that I'm able to teach somebody about it.
Okay.
So I chose to eat different every show so that I can always have different avenues of teaching a person how to get fit.
So what's your preferred like diet?
I don't really like carbs.
No.
No, I'm not a big carb person. I'm more
So
of a protein.
keto worked really well for you then.
No, that's too low. That's
Is it?
like I stick around like 100, 150. 100 and 150 carbs. That's it.
Okay.
So I think about if I've had pizza this week or not. So I don't know. The numbers are kind of throwing me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. Like, it's not bad to eat half cheat meals.
Yeah.
Right.
But the way that I do it now is that I structure what is called carb cycling, which is like you eat low carb for a certain amount of days, and then when you come to your cheat meal, you can pretty much eat whatever you want because it's not going to affect your body like it would if you was constantly eating bad meals every day. It actually helps you. Actually, you'll wake up that night after feeling leaner or looking leaner. Yep, it's amazing, man.
Now the question is, how long is the cycle? Is this like an 8-hour deal or is this like a multi-week kind of deal?
What do you mean?
Like carb cycling,
I could start.
I mean,
start for stuff for 8 hours
this becomes like this is like every I do like every 3 days.
Okay.
Like low carb, like all 3 days. From say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, low carb, and then Thursday I carb up, which is probably 3 times as many carbs that I would eat on my regular day. So around 300, 400.
Now, for the ordinary person who might think like me and is hearing this, you're also coupling it with exercise.
Yes.
Because I'd hear it and be like, okay, I'm just going to eat.
Yes.
I'm just gonna not eat very much for 3 days and then gorge myself.
Yes. Yeah, man. It's I get up every morning.
Yeah.
Monday through Sunday. And I'm up every morning. Start off with 20 minutes cardio and then go into weightlifting. I'm getting more into calisthenics now, the older I get.
Okay.
I'm kind of getting away from weightlifting. I don't really care about being big, you know.
Is that not the goal of the shows?
Yes and no. With me, I'm not going to be able to compete with the big guys. Okay. So my goal is to come in as extremely shredded as I can.
Gotcha.
Because I'm not going to be able to walk in there at 220 solid.
Right.
You know what I mean? I probably compete at like 170, 175.
Really?
Yes. I cut from
How
200.
much you walk around at?
About 200.
Oh, wow.
So in about 13, 14 weeks, I lose that amount of weight. Yep.
Wow.
It takes that much to just for me to get completely shredded, get down to about 7% body fat.
I bet.
So next question, where do you guys get the swimsuits? Is there like a specific place
I
where
do
these
this.
swimsuits happen?
No, it's online, but I don't do that. That's classic physique. I do men's physique, which are like the shorts.
Oh,
like
there's
the swim
different.
Trunk. Yes, different varieties.
Explain to me, because I'm just imagining an oiled up person with like a Speedo.
So those guys are most likely, well, you have bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is like the big guys.
Right.
Like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler.
Yeah,
those
Ronnie
guys.
Coleman and Arnold's the only two guys.
Yeah, those are the bodybuilder guys. Those are the big guys. Then you have classic physique, which are smaller version of those guys, which wear the Speedos. And then you have men's physique guys, which are smaller guys, which are getting bigger now.
Right.
As the years progress, which are smaller guys, but they wear the shorts.
Okay, gotcha.
Like the swim trunks.
Right.
Okay.
And then that's it, pretty much.
Okay.
It's only like three divisions.
How intimidating was it at first? Because we live in a society that, for the most part, everyone's kind of trending towards everybody's their own kind of beautiful, everything's okay, or, and I'm not ragging on anybody being comfortable in their own skin, but you very much, that's the opposite route. That's I'm going to stand up on stage and you're just like, judge the shit of me.
Yeah.
So what kind of mindset does that put you in? I'd imagine it'd be intimidating.
I mean, somewhat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somewhat, but this job, being in this job, it made me being okay with just being out in front.
Okay.
When you work in a school like I do, it's like you have to be okay with being seen.
Right.
At all times by everybody, So getting up on stage, I was kind of confident in myself for the most part, because even when you backstage, you look at everybody that's like, man, how am I going to compare? Yeah. And I hope this guy is not in my group. And I hope this person is,
Right.
But it's somewhat intimidating,
Sure.
But I'm telling you, it's something about those lights. It's something about those lights and people screaming your name and screaming your numbers and saying that they want you to win and things like that.
Oh, really?
That's like, it gives you a high, man.
That's cool.
It's a good thing. And then also being able just to, even getting on stage, it wasn't even about getting on stage. It was about me setting a goal and me sticking to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And me never, for now on, being able to regret not being able to see myself as the best shape I ever saw in my life.
Right.
And that's so impressive to then go thereafter and start to learn how to tweak and adjust your diets to look a certain way. I mean, that takes a lot of knowledge to be able to do that.
A lot of reading.
Yeah.
I did a lot of reading, man.
Really?
Yeah, a lot. I spent days and days of reading just simple stuff is like sodium and potassium levels, how that differs, how the amount of potassium you take in relates to how much your body will hold water versus also to how much sodium your body takes in. It's in depth, man. It's a lot.
Sounds like it.
When you get to that point, there's fitness and there's like a whole nother level of it. And the people that can understand that whole nother level of it, I mean, they're able to always stay lean at all times, you know?
I can't hang out with you because I'm still at the, hey, I go hanging out with the other dads and then we go to the pool. I'm like, could be
I
worse.
want to like do a consultation. You just tell me, hey, like we gotta get these last 10 pounds of baby off you. You tell me what to eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Is
mean,
that
we need to
something
do
you
that.
have in mind as far as, I know you said you want to teach. Is that kind of a direction you're wanting to take it?
I do it for free.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? I do it for free. Like I come to the academy. I come to the academy and I teach the academy class.
Oh,
Health and fitness,
I know that.
Cool.
Every now and then I come in there and like I said, I teach them health and fitness. Like I said, I do it for free. I wouldn't charge. I wouldn't charge for the knowledge.
Oh, you're saying you wouldn't charge?
No, I wouldn't
Oh,
charge for the knowledge, man. There's no need to charge for the knowledge. This was God given, you know.
Yeah.
He just blessed me to be able to find the right web pages and give me the strength to practice those things on my own, on my own self, and then it works out. So,
Have you ever done like the food sensitivity or like hormone level tests to kind of like see what makeup you have and you can adjust from there? I've looked at doing that before.
no, but I want to.
It'd be cool,
Yeah,
right?
I want to. I want to do it.
I don't know
Yeah.
what that is.
I just know I'm lactose intolerant, so that's why I try to stay away from milk products. So that's the biggest thing, you know.
You can get
a hard
like
lesson.
kits online and they'll send them to you. I don't know if it's like you prick your finger, it's a blood, or if like it's saliva or what. And then you send it in and they draw the labs and tell you like, oh, okay, based off of your DNA, stay away from these foods. And then same with like your hormone levels, and because there's a lot to do with like your blood type and certain foods that you
Yes.
should avoid, right?
Yep.
I've read into that a bit.
your heart rate and everything. And one thing that I also learned too when we did these the test here, I think it's a Sigma test that the department pays and to get your heart scan and everything. And the lady ended up telling me that I burn more fat at a certain range. So for like the next 3 or 4 weeks, I tried to only stay in that range. And I mean, it was amazing.
Really?
Yes. I lost more weight than I have ever lost just by me knowing that little bit of information and sticking to it. From me walk, because I don't really run. I walk treadmill. I incline treadmill to the max and I walk, you know. So that allows me to be able to keep my heart rate at a certain rate. And I mean, it's amazing.
I did that, and I was doing swimming and trying to kind of keep myself in that certain range. It was nice whenever my heart rate would get a little bit too high. Like, I gotta take a break. Sorry, get my heart rate get too high. That's good.
Yeah. Very interesting.
About the as far as like the working in the schools and whatnot, combined with doing your shows, do any of the kids know about you competing? Do they give you a hard time about it or anything?
No, they ask me though.
Yeah.
They ask me, but I don't really give that information out.
I'm sure.
I'm always. I've had kids that parents have came, like males have came to see. They're like, hey man, can you teach my kids some stuff? Like I sometimes like when it comes to like the football players, like hey, I give them the way you should eat.
Oh, very cool.
Like when you put size on during the summertime, like let's do a meal plan.
Yeah.
And I actually want to do that within this in this city. I want to start my own little program, especially for athletes during the summertime.
Right.
Just to get them on a meal plan to put size on, put weight on, put just get bigger, get in better shape for the seasons.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's what I love about the SROs. Like you guys really start to get embedded in these schools in a way that like no one would really think, but y'all are in there and get these relationships with these kids and these parents. I think that's so cool.
That's what it's about, man. Like that's what not necessarily what brought me to the schools, but once I got into schools, I started realizing my purpose. My purpose in my profession, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's a cop, but like just everybody knows like in this job, in order to, you have to find that one thing that's gonna make you get out of bed every morning. Some people like patrol, some people like chasing drugs, some people like chasing stolen cars.
Yeah.
I like to mentor kids.
Yeah.
And I realized that one night on the streets, man. Done made a ton of arrests on night say. That's the most hopping shift you can possibly be on, you know? Made a ton of arrests, but I never really got that feeling like I was really making a difference. And every one of us get into this job to make a difference.
Right.
But I never was really getting that feeling. And I done, from capital murder suspects to all the above that you can possibly deal with.
You don't always see the follow through.
You don't.
Because you do something, you book them in, and then that's kind of it.
And that's it, you know? Yeah. Or then you arrest somebody that should stay in jail and they get let out, you know? But one thing that I love about the schools, man, it's like I realized that I can arrest so many people and it does not give me the same feeling that I would have just by mentoring a kid and changing his life.
Right.
So from that point forward, that became my drive. And I remember it was a homecoming football game, and I was with an older officer that recently retired, and which I learned a lot of things from him, man. And a kid that had graduated 10 years ago came up to him holding a baby. And he was like, "Hey, officer, this is my child." And the officer's like, "Man, you got a kid?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got a kid." And then the kid was just like, I know I gave you a lot of problems. I know I was a terror when I was at school, but I thank you for you just being you and not and constantly mentoring me and trying to put me on the right path." And
That's
then
awesome.
once the kid left, he told me, he's like, "Man, this job, that's what this about.
Yeah.
You want to have that. You want these kids to come back to you later on, 10 and 20 years down the line, and know that you did something for them that made them change the way that they are."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I take that to heart, man. I do, and I think it's so much is needed in the school district from law enforcement. You know, law enforcement, far as us, we're our biggest. Your SROs are your biggest recruiters.
Sure.
They are your
Never thought
biggest
about that.
recruiters.
Yeah.
If you got a good SRO, you can get people into the uniform.
Right.
Because most of us wanted to be a cop at a young age.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and we are right now we're losing people because we are not showing them enough. Like, hey,
Right.
there are good guys out here. You know, and for them to be in their life enough to know that, hey, for them to say like, "Man, because of the way you are, I want to be one of you."
Right.
You know, and like I said, a lot of us, and especially in this unit, we take that to heart, man. And like we do our best to try to get to know these kids and personal lives and everything, and do our best to try to encourage them to come whatever avenue they want to go to. But I would love for them to be law enforcement.
Yeah.
If they have that courage, something that can't be taught.
Right.
You know.
Have you seen any like trends in the time that you've been an SRO with kids and maybe social media or I don't know, COVID? Like, have you seen anything that's changed in the time that you've been?
Oh
in the
man,
schools?
everything's. I've been to schools 7-8 years, and everything has changed. The introduction of social media, like back in the day when we were young, like we talked to each other.
Yeah.
I could sit across the table from you and have a conversation. No, most of the time, if especially at a lunchtime, you come in the lunch room at a high school where it's 600 kids, only a little bit of talking to each other.
Really?
But I'm gonna text you across the table.
Oh, right.
I text you all day.
Yeah.
I make a video. I won't really
crazy.
conversate with you unless I'm finna make a video with you.
Wow.
Make a TikTok, make a Snapchat, or something like
That's
that.
wild.
Kids having their phones in school just kind of blows my mind. 'Cause
Yeah.
we weren't allowed to have our phones on us. Wow.
The kids having them. Because
Yeah.
doing my
Yeah.
job and getting search warrants on phones, get search warrants on Instagrams and Facebook. Not so much Facebook. I've discovered that Facebook is for old people.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. But dude, just the Snapchats and everything. The conversations that these kids have
Oh man.
blows my mind.
Really?
Oh, man.
Oh, God, that's terrifying.
Yeah, no, my kids, I don't know. Right now I told them they're not getting phones until they're 18.
Hey, I said the same thing.
But
Yeah.
I said the same thing.
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. Now, one of the ways you can be the best at this job is to be vested, obviously, in it on an emotional and a personal level. But that's always kind of a balance that police officers have to strike because, like we're talking about being on the street, a lot of times there's a lack of fulfillment, and you care about your job and you want to do right, but then you don't always get that follow through and know how things worked out. So you always kind of have to balance being vested, but then kind of being able to unplug and step back too. What have you come across anything on the SRO side where you're very invested in things, but it just doesn't work out, or it kind of like checks your optimism, if you will, and it kind of brings you down a little bit?
I mean, you far as just kids.
Yeah,
I mean, man, yes, all the time.
really.
I've realized I can mentor 100, but I might be only able to save one.
Really?
Man, I had a recent guy not too long ago that been knowing him since 6th grade, constantly mentoring him. And from my perspective, he was a fantastic guy. Somehow last year he gets popped with 30 carts of like THC and AK-47 and all these different things. Jeez. So when me being extremely close to him, once he got out, because of course we don't hold him, you know.
Right.
He comes to school and I brought him into my office. The moment he sits down, he begins crying. And I was like, man, why are you crying? He was like, man, I knew I was going to disappoint you.
Oh, wow.
I was like, you definitely disappointed me. I said, man, it hurt me to the core because I invested a lot into you.
Right.
But stuff like that happens all the time, man. But you still don't stop doing what you have to do.
For sure.
You try to save as many as you can.
Yeah.
How are you able to do that? Because it takes a lot of energy, right? How do you recharge and how do you find the motivation to keep going?
I see myself in these kids. My upbringing and how I grew up, I see myself in so much of these young boys. And I know the feeling of being broke. I know the feeling of being poor. I know the feeling of just trying to make it, you know, and not necessarily having that person that's on your shoulder that's constantly trying to keep you going the right direction.
Right.
And I always keep that in mind. Like I said earlier, like I have one child, but I got thousands of kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And I take that serious. I got thousands of kids, man. Yeah. It's so many kids. I would say 80% of our kids that are at school are fatherless. They have fathers, but the fathers are just not present. Yeah. So in order for me to do my best to change what the world looks like, I have to get up every day, tired or not, and speaking to somebody's life. Right. Speaking to one of these kids' life every day.
Yeah. Takes a special person to do that.
You mentioned where you know, the way that you grew up and being able to kind of relate to them. What was it that you think, if you're in an environment that's similar to where these other kids, where they're going astray, what was it that pulled you out of it to where you're now in the situation you're in today?
I mean, with me, man, I've always the type of person that I want to stay away from bad things. Mm-hmm. I mean, from high school all the way up. I just never really drink, don't smoke, you know. So I just try to stay away from a lot of the bad things. But you can easily be led into things by your friends. Right. And that's the biggest issue we run into is like groups, not necessarily a singular person. This kid can be fantastic. But the group he hangs with makes him bad. Right. Makes him get in trouble, you know? And just trying to make this kid understand that. Sometimes it's hard because right now we live in a society where everybody want to be accepted. Yeah. More so on the youth level. Like everybody wants to be accepted. So it's a struggle trying to make them understand, like, hey, you don't necessarily need your friends. Right. You know? Which
I imagine is even harder whenever they don't have that support at home.
That's extremely hard.
Because it's like, where else do you have that? Because as humans, we want to belong somewhere. So if you don't have it at home, where else are you gonna look for it?
That's something that we were talking about in our unit not long ago is with kids. Because when we were, middle school, high school, we could go home and whatever happened at school just stayed at school. And we got to go home and just be a kid again, right? But they don't have that chance to do that anymore because they have phones, they have social media. So if they got bullied during the day, it follows them online and they get no break from that. And the system gets overloaded really quickly. So it's no surprise that we see so much anxiety, depression in kids now because they don't get a break from it.
Right. They do not. Social media was made to make your life easier. But when it comes to the youth, man, it kind of made it worse. Right. It kind of made it worse. It definitely increased depression. Definitely. And I see that every day.
Well, I think we're seeing, and I may be wrong in this, but I think we're seeing the first generation that's really mentally developing with it, having such an active influence on it. Because, I mean, like for me growing up, my influences were the people around me. They were my family, but I mean, now it's not. They're almost like a back seat.
Yep. I mean, social media, if you think about it, it really is a form of addiction because you base your self-worth based off of likes and comments and popularity and all of that. And I mean, that's a huge dump of chemicals in your brain. And so you're just constantly trying to validate yourself based off of really opinions that just aren't real. It's social media, it's not real life in a sense.
With you dealing with so many of these kids at school, does it influence, you think, the way you parent?
Oh, definitely.
Really?
Definitely. Like, I've realized in this thing that my daughter would probably hardly ever get away with anything.
Yeah.
Because I see so much.
Right.
And most likely I have to bring myself down a little bit, not to be so hard on her.
Right.
Let her live her life a little bit. And a lot of times in law enforcement, it's kind of hard for us to let our children live a certain life, because you've seen so much in this job, and you want to protect them so much. And it gets worse once you work in the schools.
I can't imagine.
Because you see from the good to the bad, and the extremely worse. Right. And don't get me wrong, like, to me, there's no worse kid. That's a kid that just misled. You know what I mean? That's a kid that just didn't have somebody there with them, teaching them how they should act and how they should be. But it definitely changed how I parent. Definitely.
So that what you just said was another question I had. Obviously, it's with these kids being influences on one another. I imagine it's a balancing act, because like, as a parent, or really just a parent, a husband, just an adult, if I feel like someone's a negative influence on me, my family, at all, in any way, that person's gone. Like, I don't really. There's not a whole lot of debate about it. There's no if the cons outweigh the pros, you're out. And I don't feel bad or really think about it much. But I imagine your situation's a little bit different, because these kids are potentially bad influences, but also you might be that lifeline that could pull them out. But then if you don't, or if you do eventually, it's possible they've had a negative impact on the people around them. So how do you do that? How do you balance those needs?
Man, you try to. So say if a kid comes to me, like our ninth graders. Ninth graders at high school tend to be your ninth graders going to give you your problems. The young boys just now starting to feel themselves. They feel like they're men, so they start to do a lot of stupid things. So a lot of our issues come from them. And once I tend to try to gravitate toward my worst, my kids that are going to give me problems, and then you start, instead of initially just hammering down on them, started learning about their life and why they are the way they are. And once you be able to tap into to why they are the way they are, try to insert something into their life that can take that place. A lot of these kids, a lot of our issues, no lie, a lot of our issues come from kids that don't have fathers.
I believe it.
Oh, 90%, 99%. Like, most of the time when I have an issue and I have to bring a parent in, I'm bringing only it's a single mom walking in the door.
Really?
And I say, hey, where's the dad? It's like, he's not present. I can understand why this kid is the way he or she is, because he or she's never been led by a man, like by a strong man. Right. I hardly ever have any issues with it's very seldom I have issues with a kid that has both parents in their home.
Really?
And the father is a strong father, strong godly father. I hardly ever have issues.
Why do you think that is? Because that's one of the things in this profession that has always kind of confused me. It's undeniable. I mean, any level of this job, no matter what, it's like you said, it's almost universal. And I'm not a sociologist. I don't get into that kind of stuff. But I've always been curious why that is. And I don't know if there's probably a simple answer I'm not seeing. But what's your opinion on it? Why do you think that seems to be so across the board?
As far as why,
just the absence of dad causing delinquency.
My belief is, man, it's only certain things that a father can put into a child's life, especially a young man. A mom can do her best to raise a man, right, but nobody can raise a man like another man. And when you have just single moms, and my mom did a fantastic job, even though I had a stepfather, she did a fantastic job. But I was still lacking certain things. So even with me lacking certain things, you still look around to people outside, other men outside. Every man is going to look out to no matter, he's not looking for a woman, right, looking for a woman to teach him how to be a man. He's going to find some other type of man in society, good or bad, to be like that person, to learn something from, And like I said, I think it's just the fact that just the lack of like just strong men, and it shows.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is your approach whenever you're in that situation? Because obviously we can say, hey, we don't have this is why, there's not a dad, but your job doesn't change. So you still have to make the best of the situation, just like they do. But what are some approaches that you take in dealing with that, or any specific advice you give to the moms in those situations?
I mean, we always do our best to mentor kids, and I'm always offering my hands like, hey, I'll check in on them at class. I'll pull them out of class and I'll bring them into my office. And let me just talk about life with him. I'm just talking about life. Give him different avenues. I'm a huge golfer, so I love to push people into golf.
Oh, really?
Oh man, I love to push people into golf. Golf is life, is the game of life. So I try to get these young men and young women to either work, find a job, which I drive around the city, try to find them somewhere to work, or put them into some type of sports,
right?
To get them going, get them occupied with something other than just the negativity that's going on around them. Yep. Right. And also just give the moms reassurance that they can do this, because a lot of times the moms come in and they just feel like their hands are tied and they don't know what to do. Yeah. And do my best to give them resources. Hope Forum is a big organization that I'm part of in Fort Worth, where you it's a resource to help single moms with young boys. Okay, it helps young men for the fatherless.
And how do they do that? What's their
raise money? I'm also on the committee for the golf tournament that we host every year.
No kidding.
Yep, we host every year to raise money to put these kids through high school, put these kids through college, put these kids in the military every year, man.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I'm probably going to be calling you about some people that are coming into my brain as we're talking about this who could probably use some of that kind of resource.
As far as like Hope Farm, what do you? Is it just strictly fundraising, or are there specific?
No, it's a school.
Oh, okay.
There's actually a school in Fort Worth.
Oh, no kidding.
Called Hope Farm, where these young men are placed with godly men within the schools, and that will allow them that allows the moms can release that feeling of not having a strong male figure in their life, and those men step up and teach these boys how to be men, along with the fundraising and taking that financial stress off the mothers.
Right.
Huh. Wow. I never heard of that. That's really cool. Wow.
As far as like if someone's listening and they are interested in looking into it, either from a donation perspective or utilizing it, what's a good way to research and find out about it?
Well, it's our golf tournament is called the DFW Shootout. Okay. We're going to have it on October the 16th at Golf Club of Dallas. But you can just go to Hope Forum Incorporated. Just Google Hope Forum, and you'll find it on there. The symbol looks like this. Click on the website, and then there's a donate page. Okay. On there.
Awesome. I wanted because I want to talk just a little bit about some of your early life and whatnot as well, and the personal side of things. But on the professional side, you're talking about a lot of helping these kids and mentoring and whatnot. But one of the unique things about this profession is we still carry a badge, a gun, and handcuffs, and sometimes we have to use them. One of my first question is, how do you balance that mentor role whenever you do? Because I know that y'all do have to place kids in arrest. I've had to utilize y'all in the past. How do you balance that personal relationship with having to make arrests at times?
I mean, the first thing, beginning of every year, with me being at the high school, I have grade levels meetings. I talk to every kid, every grade. We break them up from 9th grade boys, 9th grade girls, and so on. And I always tell them firsthand, Officer Williams loves every last one of y'all. But understand, when your way of life intersects with my occupation, we're going to have a problem. We should run parallel. That means your way of life and my occupation should run parallel. That means you're doing what you're supposed to, but when they intersect, there's going to be a battle, and most likely I'm going to win that battle. Right. I said, but Officer Williams loves every last one of y'all. But understand, if we intersect, I have to do my job. Right. And they respect me for that. Really? Just being completely honest with them. Just being completely honest with them, they respect you for that, for the most part. But they know if they get in, then they don't hold it against you. Because even if I arrest a kid, the moment I get him in the car, I'm gonna mentor him.
Right.
I'm gonna open this window and I'm gonna talk to him, no matter what he's done, no matter what he or she has been going through. I'm gonna open that window and I'm gonna talk to him on the way to the jail.
Yeah. You know, that's something I've found in this profession in general, because you turn on TV, you see, protests or individuals or groups who are just, claiming this or that about our job and how terrible we are. But then even people who profess not to like us on the street, kind of the same thing. If I'm sent to a place where I'm having to interact with you, which is what it is 90% of the time, I don't generally just decide, hey, I'm gonna go walk up to this person's house. Like, I have to be there for a reason. Same thing. If you're straight up and you're just honest about whatever the situation is, and the fact that people have to be held accountable, I've always been blown away across my career how often the even if it's not a positive interaction necessarily, but it's still just it is what it is. Mm-hmm. I think that honesty goes a huge way. I think
you just have mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with kids, especially high school kids that are 2 or 3 years away from jumping into society, some are already in there working and doing their own things. Respect goes a long way. Mm-hmm. You show them respect, they show you respect.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like I said, it goes a long way.
Yeah. And you're modeling that for them. And if they've never known that in whatever family situation they have, they see it in you. And so that's a skill that you've absolutely taught because you modeled it.
And I'm telling you, sometimes it's hard. It's
imagine.
extremely hard. Especially when certain things go on in the world that make us look extremely bad. You think you see it on the streets, but you're going to feel it in the schools.
Really?
You're going to feel it. You will feel it 10 times more in dealing with youth, dealing with kids.
Why is that?
Because kids are very vocal.
Okay.
You can run across people on the street, they might not say F you.
Right.
The kid's going to tell you F you.
Really?
Oh, and they're going to write it on the boards. They're going to write it on the poles. They're going to write it on the ground. They're going to write everything.
That's funny.
Yeah, so everything that goes on in society is magnified within the schools. From everything. Like,
that makes sense. It's kind of scary though.
Yeah. If you really want to know how the world works, walk into a high school.
Yeah.
Walk into a 6A high school in Texas where you have 4,000 kids. I'm going to have 4,000 kids at South Grand Prairie this year, which is bigger than my hometown, and you see it's a small city.
Yeah.
It's a small city from top to bottom. It's a small city. And you get to see every aspect of it. And everything that the world looks like goes on in a high school.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as far as you mentioned the kids being real upfront and honest about and how difficult it can be whenever things don't go great elsewhere, which is one of our huge frustrations in our job, is like somebody in the northern half of the U.S. can kill somebody that they shouldn't have killed, and I'm dealing with it. And I have never conducted myself that way, and that's something we all have to deal with. But has you noticed a change? Because when some of those shootings or the killings don't happen and the sentiment kind of swings back our way for a little bit, do you notice a drastic shift there in the schools, or do they kind of latch on and keep a hold of that negativity?
Honestly, it's not even the kids. The kids learn from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if the parents hold on to it and tell the kids about it and won't let it go,
right,
then the kids bring it to school and then they try to portray that onto me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But we realized, a lot of us in the unit, the more you interact with these kids, when those things happen, right or wrong, and they know you for who you are and what you've done in their life, a lot of times they quickly, easily shut that off, shut that negativity off. And like, no, not all cops are bad because I know Officer Williams.
Right.
I know this SRO, I know that SRO. So that's why it's important to get to know these kids before anything goes wrong daily. Because a lot of these kids, even and it's such a need to have that happen, because a lot of these kids are the way that we keep the school safe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's
like these kids will help me keep the school safe.
Yeah.
And that's just based off of, but it takes time to get to those kids that don't really want to talk to you, don't really want to be around you. It just takes time to get to them to the point where they'll be okay with walking in your office and saying like, hey, this is what's going on inside the school.
Right.
But like I said, it takes time to get to that point.
Sure.
I know I worked some overtime as security, never a high school, just because I see high school kids in the street and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. I don't have patience for that. But in elementary schools, and I was amazed whenever some of the school shootings had happened, the people that would come up to you blew my mind. I mean, people that, and it's sad, but it's also it's almost a great equalizer. Where it's like, hey, people full well would not like you under any other circumstance, but because you're standing outside that school or in that school and they know you're ready to kill and die to make sure their kid is okay, the response was incredible.
No, definitely, definitely,
the support,
definitely, man. Especially around this area, like they have a huge support for law enforcement, and they have extremely huge support for the individuals that protect their children inside the schools. Like the school hasn't even started yet, but I just love when people say, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you be able to protect my child. Right. And that means a lot to me.
Have you noticed it, because some of these shootings have unfortunately targeted elementary schools, and have you noticed the shift in your mentality at work? Because at least for me, I've never been an SRO, but as a police officer seeing SROs, like, my assumption was that you probably kind of kept an idea of like the gang activity, you've managed fights or whatever, but you've got school down the street where a kid's bringing a gun in and getting involved in shootings. You got these true active shooters. Have you noticed a change in your own mentality as far as how you approach your job, or have you always kind of been prepared for that? And people like me are just now thinking about it.
I mean, I've always kind of been prepared for that. Yeah. We try to always keep that in the back of our minds. Right. That's one of the reasons why I get up every morning at 4 a.m. When I work patrol, I probably could roll out of bed, be at work at 7. I could roll out of bed at probably by 5:30 and be okay getting and give enough time to get on the streets. Like, man, if I'm not up and mentally ready to stand in front of traffic, stand in front of the school and direct traffic, and then walk into the school where I'm going to have 3,000 kids, my day kicks off with the quickness. Right. It kicks off fast. Always being mentally prepared, walking into that school helps me big time. And then also working alongside the ISD, and they giving us certain resources to be able to keep the school safer. Right. So yeah, it has changed. The more active shooters that we have, the more weight is on the SRO's shoulders. Right. And the more things that we have to put in place to make sure that we always can keep these kids safe. But also, it makes it even more important to get to know these kids. Right. So that, hey, this kid, if I know a kid and the kid looks different or is doing different these days, I'm gonna pick up on that. Right. And it's easily, I guarantee you, most active shooters, if they were constantly talked to every day about somebody, you will see the difference in them. Yep. Right.
When we went to that threat assessment training with the FBI last week, that was a really big thing they were talking about, especially with your kids in these schools, is having somebody, know them and know the life that they're coming in with and the baggage that they're bringing at the door, but being able to notice those minute changes. And what happens, especially with the younger kids, they call it the leakage, right? So if they do have plans or there is something that they've had some targeted violence plan in place, they'll leak a lot of times, whether it's social media or bringing something to school, and having somebody notice when things are off and talking to them about that significantly reduces them being able to carry through, because in a way they feel like, okay, somebody has stopped me, like somebody has acknowledged that this is not good, and it invalidates them. And a lot of people, if they don't ever have that intervention, they almost feel like they've gotten the go-ahead to carry through with their plan. So everything you're talking about is FBI was like saying the exact same stuff. So it's kind of cool to have it come full circle. And it was just, the biggest takeaway for me was one of the most common things with all these cases was people lost the human part of them. And the people who were stopped were people who were just treated like humans and was just, they weren't a project for someone to come fix. Like there was one guy in particular who was invited over to just some random classmate's house to like read comic books. And after that, he was like, you know what? I think I can live my life, and didn't shoot his school. Yeah. So just those things you're talking about, it to us, it almost just sounds like, so, well, of course, like why wouldn't we do that? But to these kids, it's everything.
It's everything.
Which I guess is where it comes in with because you can't keep an eye on 3,000-4,000 kids.
No.
So you've got to have people doing it for you.
Yep.
Helping you.
Yep. And then the relationship we have with the ISD is a very, very good relationship because they lend us very good people, very good security guards, and they have really stepped up their security measures and also just the funding to be able to lock the school down when we needed to lock down.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not going to go into detail on it, obviously, but the efforts that they've made to work with the PD, not just the SROs, but I mean every single patrol officer, SWAT, they've taken great lengths to make sure that in the event that a response was needed, it would be very fast and very effective, which is awesome. Does it impact your home life at all? Kind of the shift in public narrative? Because I know if I'm not thinking about SROs in that way, I imagine likely a spouse or a kid isn't. Like, for instance, I have one of my sons, I messed up. So there's a difference. Y'all may not know this. There's a difference between YouTube and YouTube Kids.
Yes.
Okay. Now I know.
There's YouTube Kids?
Yes. And
Coco Millen, you'll figure it out.
Oh, okay. All you had to say was Coco Melon.
well, so I thought that it was YouTube and you had parental settings turned on. I was wrong. He wound up on this video on YouTube, and it's some movie that's about like a school shooting. And he had a family member who had been at Timberview whenever that happened last year, I think. And so we dealt with that somewhat, but it was very easy to kind of move past because I can see him. He's safe. Okay, that was the thing that happened over there. But he saw this video that was a dramatic depiction of the inside of a school during a shooting. Man, melted down.
Aww.
Like, I'm not going back to school. Like, he just walked in the living room and was crying. And I was like, what? Which is not like him. I was like, what in the world's going on? I was blown away by the impact that had on him. Obviously, your kid was a little bit younger, but do you have any issues like that at home where it's like, hey, I don't know if I'm good with you doing this type of role or being that one guy who might have to answer that threat?
Far as like my wife or my child looking at me and like, hey, not knowing like, hey, I don't know.
I want you having to be the guy.
She understands my passion for it. Yeah. And that's one thing when it comes to me and her. We're never going to stand in the way of your pursuit of the passion of your profession. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to stand in the way of that. I'm going to let you do you. Yeah. But let's put some things in place just in case some things go wrong, that we're still taken care of. Mm-hmm. Right. Because it's getting more and more become a realization that things could possibly happen as the years progress, Right. But she don't necessarily like it. My daughter loves it. My daughter loves that I'm in the schools, but she don't see it the same way my wife
right.
Of course, sees it, But like, she never really stands in the way of me doing me,
Do you have a plan, or do you think how you'll approach it as your daughter gets older? Because I know the first time that my kids came home and they had a drill about, hey, we're going to be in this corner. They're learning about stuff like we learned in SWAT about angles and engaging target. And they don't know that's what they're learning, but that's what they're learning. Mm-hmm. Do you have a plan for how you're going to address that or go into it with her?
Well, the good thing about it, my daughter's in this district.
Okay.
So if I run a drill, I'm running it with her. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So even if or have somebody close to me that knows me that runs it with her. Right. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times she'll just come home and ask me questions about it, and me and her sit down and we'll just talk about it. Talk about the things, talk about the actual. She's 6, so we haven't got into the details of why we do these things. But mostly, she just needs to know I'm just trying to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that, man.
Yeah.
Just hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry. There's no more questions.
But it's getting to that. It's getting to that. Why? Right. And you just be like.
I heard that starts pretty quick. The why. Yeah.
It depends on the kid for sure, because like my 7-year-old will kind of listen to me and move on. My 9-year-old though, and he knows everything, and he's hard to lie to. Yeah. He's hard, probably because he didn't realize he had YouTube. But so besides SRO, is there anything else that you look at wanting to do professionally?
Man, until I feel like I'm finished here, I feel like I still have ground to cover.
Yeah.
I still feel like I have kids that still need to be saved.
Yeah.
You know, until I finish that,
Which that doesn't seem like a job that gets done.
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
Never
No, it's a big need, man.
Yeah.
It is a very, very big need for strong males in the school district. It's a big need for having strong males in these kids' life, period. You know, so anywhere I can put myself where I can be that role,
Right.
I'm willing to do what I have to do.
Very cool.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up. I had like 5 more questions in my head I was going to ask about the other personal side, but I didn't realize the SRO stuff was so interesting. Appreciate you sitting down with us, man.
No
I appreciate
problem,
you
man.
showing me.
Good to meet you.
You can wear the hat with the headphones. I just like you can't wear
It's
the hat.
impressive. Yeah. Yeah. Is your arm
Make it-
tired at all or
Nah.
no?
I just see just
Oh,
see-
you
you
body
see
build.
his
I
arm?
don't
Yeah.
know. What
No.
a stupid question.
All right, guys. We appreciate you listening. Bryan, appreciate you.
man,
sitting
thank
down
y'all
with
for
us.
having me.
Thank you.
All right. Till next time.
Question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
We
About the speedos.